Okay.
I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for December 16th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call to establish the quorum. Amy?
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Present.
Supervisor John Stavinus.
Here.
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Supervisor Jim Nellen.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfle.
All right, here, thank you. All right, meet and greet. Would you mind introducing yourself? And Amy, would you start? Just a quick introduction, and then we'll go on to the meeting after that.
I'm attorney Amy Sullivan from Pinkert Law Firm.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Mitchie, Sevastopol resident.
Thank you.
Derek Daniil, a resident, County P.
Bob Gamble, county resident, town resident.
Brenda Lang, town of Sevastopol resident. Mary Moster, Sevastopol resident.
Jeff Lang, Sevastopol resident.
Margaret Harding, county resident.
Jeff Harding, hopeful future resident of Sevastopol.
Future resident. Okay.
Keith Buechler, Sevastopol resident.
Carol Konetsky, Sevastopol resident.
Steve Konetsky, Sevastopol resident.
Okay. The board, I think we're all familiar with, so we will move on to public participation. Is there anyone here that would like to have a moment or two to speak on some issue? Yes, Jim?
I'm going to somewhat read from this statement. My name is Jim Mitchie. I am a full-time resident at 4159 Bayshore Drive in Sevastopol. I'm also a board member of the Bayshore Property Owners Association. And lucky for me, the chairman of the BSPOA Special Committee on the Quarry Development. I want to make sure that you're aware that an application for the conditional use permit for the quarry, the Droitzer property, was filed with the county on December 4, 2019. You will be receiving it for review when and if it is deemed complete, and that is if it's responsive to the 17 criteria for a CUP review. On behalf of the 400 households of BSPOA and the Quarry Neighborhood Action Group, I urge you to seriously review this application when it's made available to you. Review it not just to see if there's words on the 17 criteria, but also whether the words are substantiated and consistent, whether the required permits are complete, approved, and submitted, and whether they've left out or ignored significant information. To assist you in this review, I invite you to use the abridged version that I produced in good faith. It's a lot easier to look at 63 pages with bookmarks than the 422 pages in 7 files that the application was in. That way you can get a coherent and complete picture of what is being proposed. It's available on the BSPOA website, or I'd be happy to send it to you. And be assured that between BSPOA and the Quarry Development, a neighborhood group, we will be examining and have been examining this application very carefully and in detail. Also be aware that Bayshore Property Owners Association legal team has filed a letter brief with Door County Land Use Services Department dated December 9th, 2019. The brief requests that the department reject or dismiss the conditional use permit for the Quarry Bluff development because the proposed development appears to violate Door County comprehensive zoning ordinance requirements for multiple occupancy developments and campgrounds, and because it does not account for the requirements of the Door County Land Division Ordinance. As of 5 p.m. today, the legal team has had no response or acknowledgement of this brief from the county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we did become aware that that application was filed. I was pretty sure that you knew that we knew that it was filed.
Well, inviting you to look at the abridged version.
Somebody sent me 88 pages, so I don't know.
Well, that was my first cut.
I was going to say, I only got the extra added cartoons, or I don't know. Anyway, appreciate your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, let's move on to the agenda. Was the agenda properly noticed, Amy?
The agenda has been properly noticed.
That was great. On the agenda, I would like to make one change with everyone's approval, and that is I'd like to just move up the recommendation for legal counsel ahead of pending business as our first item tonight. If no one objects, I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda for Monday, December 16th, 2019, with deviation from the order.
Second. Second. All right. Motion by Linda, second by Mark, to approve the agenda with changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is approval of minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting November 25th, 2019. Everyone should have had a chance to take a look at it.
I'll approve the Board of Supervisors meeting for November 25th, 2019.
We have a motion by John and a second by?
I'll second that.
All right. Second by Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. We're going to move up the pending business, and this is the recommendation for legal counsel, which the town needs to do. And tonight we have with us Miss Amy Sullivan. I sent out to the board a brief summary of your background, Amy, in our discussions. She's a native of Door County, married to obviously a Sullivan, who many of you might know from the farm market, who's very active in the produce business, her father-in-law. Has been with Pinkert Law Firm, I believe, 7 or 8 years. She's here tonight just to introduce herself, spend a couple minutes, and answer any questions that any of you might have. And when we're done with that, we're going to back up and just talk about the Muscat property for a couple minutes. So Amy, why don't you just take it from the top for a few minutes?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to provide the town legal services going forward. As you know, my partner, Attorney Nesbitt, is retiring from the Pinkert Law Firm, and he's been the town's attorney for quite a few years now, I think. And we've been working with Randy. There's actually 2 of us at our office who are going to be focusing with a municipal law practice now. One of our associates, Tyler Pluff, is also going to be working with me, not primarily with the town of Sevastopol, but with our other municipal clients as well, because our firm really felt we wanted to have a strong municipal practice and good backup when one of us is not available. My background previously was heavily focused in real estate. I did a lot of contract work, some small claims litigation. Tyler has more litigation experience recently than I do, but I feel that my background in those topic areas can be very helpful for the town under the framework of the municipal statutory rules that we have to go on. And I think that it could be a really good working relationship to continue between our firm and the town. And it's something that I'm really enjoying. I've spent a lot of time with Randy, particularly since this summer, shadowing him, running ideas past him, beginning to work on some of the projects for our municipal clients. And I'm pretty familiar with the ongoing files that the town of Sevastopol has. There are a few things in court right now that we're dealing with, and a few properties that you've been dealing with for some time, and I feel the transition should be smooth. So again, I'd appreciate the opportunity if the town decides to for Pinkert Law Firm to continue working for you. If anyone has any specific questions for me, I'd be happy to respond.
Attorney Sullivan and Associate Tyler Pluff did appear at our Door County unit of Wisconsin Towns Association on November 21st, and again provided an overview and the credentials that they had, and also indicated that their administrative assistant, Heidi Borkovitz, is staying on board to assist in the transition period.
is
helpful.
Heidi is critical. You know, I think anyone who's had a good assistant knows how helpful it is, and she can help us put the pieces together on historical background when we need it. So we're very, very happy to have a place for her still at Pinkert.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? Amy, I met with you earlier, so I was satisfied enough to tell the board that I thought I would recommend you, so.
I appreciate that.
Given that, I think what I'll do is I'll make the motion that Ms. Sullivan becomes our town attorney, starting January 1st when Randy retires. And so that motion would be by Dan, seconded by?
I'll second that motion.
Second that motion by Linda. Any further discussion?
No.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, thank you, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
So-
I'm looking forward to it.
And as long as we have you here, we are going to take advantage of that.
It sounds good.
Get to work.
I know. Jeez.
She was doing double duty in court a few weeks back on this Muscat property, and her and Randy presented our case to the judge, and as I think the board knows, the judge ruled that Nikki Henkin would be given the deed, or I should say, assigned the deed to the property that they have not had for 20 years, even though it's been theirs through probate in Illinois. So we have taken care of that aspect of it. Today, I was invited to go to the Finance Committee at the County of Door, and I went there with hat in hand in the hopes of garnering some cash from them to hopefully match or whatever we can obtain to help in the demolition of those structures over the course of 2020. So I got an opportunity to give them a little history on how long that's been sitting there, the condition it's in. We talked about the fees that we as a town have paid, both for the liability letter, the waiver of liability from the DNR, as well as other legal work that Amy's firm has provided for us. So it was a first step. We are going to have to backtrack and go to the administrative committee to get a cooperation letter agreement, intergovernmental agreement. Assuming they're supportive of that, we'll go back to the Finance Committee again in January and ask again for some funds. We do not have the actual cost yet to tear those buildings down. That vendor's still working on that information. So just a brief recap from today. As far as the Muscat property itself, which you have in your packet, as a result of what happened, Amy came back to us and made a recommendation explaining, I should say, gave us two options to look at. One was to create a raise order, and the other one was to take a public nuisance action. It's her recommendation that the town proceed with the raise order as the potentially least expensive and easier to implement solution. And in order to do that, the town board would authorize our building inspector to inspect the property and issue a raise order if it's appropriate. It would be difficult to believe that he would say that property is usable. And as the letter states, it gives a 30-day window for the owners of the building to address the situation. And if not, we would then end up going to the court, and they would have a 20-day time frame in which to present their side of the case. Assuming that isn't the case, we would eventually be given the go-ahead to start to remove some of those buildings. So
Dan, may I clarify?
Sure.
The raise order does not require us to go to court. It gives
okay.
it gives Nikki Henkin the opportunity to petition the court. The public nuisance action requires court action.
Okay, that's why I had her here. It's perfect. So, do any of you have any questions relative to this? Because otherwise, eventually, we'll take action here to utilize the raise order. So, go ahead.
I just, one question. I appreciate the distinction you drew. At the recently concluded matter involving reforming the deed, I take it that the grantee was not present, was not represented by counsel?
That's correct. So there's actually two grantees. There's Nikki Henkin and her brother Julian. Julian, we did find out, is deceased.
Yes.
Nikki did speak with Attorney Nesbitt the day before the hearing. She was personally served. And she did speak with him, and she kind of said she'd like to see this resolved, but then she did not appear at the hearing and did not indicate that she wanted to appear at the hearing. So she was definitely aware of it, but chose not to attend. So the judge entered it without them present.
Thank you. Her brother apparently died without issue.
He died without issue, is that what you said?
He had no children.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought, we didn't know he was dead until about a day before the hearing. But we don't believe he had issue, but we don't know that for sure. We believe his sister is his heir, but he never had an estate open, but we don't know if he had a will.
What you've outlined in your letter to us is really two tracks. Track number one, we go forward with the raise order. We have to serve her personally, so she's aware of what we're doing, and then she's got 30 days within which to challenge it. And if she does challenge it, then she's entitled to a hearing.
Yes.
Essentially, the same thing as though we had brought an action. So she will have her day in court if she elects.
Absolutely.
So it's just that in the first instance, it's an expedited arrangement. We can get, presuming that she does nothing, says nothing, doesn't object, then we can get to the point where we can commence the raising of those structures.
Yes.
In a faster, okay.
Yes.
And as I understand, reading the letter, you endorse going down the first, going through the first door, which is the raise order, rather than filing a lawsuit?
Yes, there are some circumstances where the question of whether or not the building is dilapidated enough to require a raise order might be a closer call, that, having a court order would have some benefits. I'm not a building inspector, but I don't think that that's going to be the case here. So although there are benefits to having a piece of paper signed by the judge saying proceed with what you're doing, in this circumstance, I think it's faster, more affordable, and the risk is low to me to proceed with the easier route.
The benefit of going down, doing what you suggested, which is pursuing a raise order, I think it gets us to our ultimate conclusion, where we want to be faster.
Yes.
If she doesn't exercise her right for a hearing, to get this in front of a judge, who will make essentially the same determination he would had we brought a formal legal action, she's going to be entitled to her day in court.
Right.
If she doesn't, and she doesn't exercise that right, we go ahead and raise the structures. How does she raise then subsequently a challenge?
The only challenge I can imagine that would be brought would be a procedural challenge, that the owner of the property was not properly served, noticed that the raise order was going to happen. But I think the actual possibility of that happening would be incredibly low. She'll be personally served with a process server, and the statutes explicitly say what to do to serve a person, an estate, when the estate has not been opened. Okay. So with Julian, it says we have to post it on the building and serve and publish in the newspaper. So a procedural defect, I think, could create a possible way to do it, but I can't imagine it happening.
Thank you.
She also expressed in her conversation to Randy, and this happened the day before we went to court, that there was a certain level of frustration. Her health was waning. She made an offhanded comment to the fact that she feels like maybe she might even want to just throw in a towel on it and give it to the county. Now, it's one of 3 parcels, so we're only talking about the one. The other one is we may be stimulating her to action with the raise order, because at the same time that this is happening, we're pursuing the fuel tank and the gas pump there, and that's been referred to the department, the DNR referred it to the Department of Justice, or DEPCAP.
Yes, and
Sorry.
DOJ.
And so she's going to feel a squeeze coming from a couple different routes, so that, I don't know, it may be good news, bad news, we'll have to see. But I think the raise order, when I had the conversation today with the Finance Committee at the county too, was I kind of want to strike while the iron is hot and try and get something accomplished. If unfortunately, if she were to pass, she has 2 heirs, and as you could probably tell me more than I know, it would cause us to recycle this whole thing and, delay the game. So we're going to try and follow that recommendation if all of you agree. So
So can we put, no, excuse me, go ahead. Can we put this money on her tax bill or
Yes.
to get it back?
Yeah. It has to be assigned, and we had that conversation again today too with the Corporation Counsel for the county. So the question, there's so many ifs yet out there.
Right.
Yes, eventually,
Eventually.
we would recapture it, so. Yes.
I believe with our building inspector in his table of costs, to ask for a raise order from him to do that inspection is over and above our normal inspection fees. And I'm wondering what kind of liability our building inspector might have. I know he's bonded, of course, in order to do business with us. But does he have any liability as far as, I mean, if we're doing an internal inspection, he's going to have to trespass onto that property. And I'm wondering, is he certified to determine asbestos?
No.
So
he
I think
just,
that comes from the state level.
if we, from the conversation I had with the fire department who have dealt with this, once we get the raise order where he does the condemnation, we have to bring somebody in to deal with potential asbestos. And if the buildings, a couple of buildings are in so bad a shape, I don't know, the issue is, we don't know if somebody would go in them. In which case, there's another set of criteria that we have to follow with the DNR in order to dispose of the contents or dispose of the facility building without identifying whether there was asbestos in it or not. It has to go to a different landfill and different rules. So we'd have to follow those. We have to follow all of that stuff, obviously.
And then my next question would be, so if we decide to proceed with raising the buildings or removing the trailer, can we decide that we're going to tackle the smallest problem first, which I think would be hauling the trailer and the steel frame off, seeing how that goes before tackling a house or an outbuilding or something else?
I think it's, from my perspective, it's one, what's the cost of each one of those structures, which hopefully, you know, it's a guesstimate, but obviously we're not going to pick on the most expensive one because I'd like to get the most bang for our buck. The only other issue I have with the trailer is, I agree with you, it sounds like, gee, we could get the trailer out of there easiest, but, and I don't have the answer to this, but over the 20-plus years that that sat there, they have some pretty substantial trees in front of it.
And
So,
going through
you
it,
know,
I
as
think.
part of the raise order, can we take down the 2 trees? You know, if
Or
we're,
20 trees.
or, pardon me?
Or 20 trees, stuff that's growing through it. and-
Yeah, well, I don't, yeah. So that would be the only reason I would say I'm, you know, flip-flop on one side or the other.
There's, you know, I've read through chapter 66 and I don't recall reading anything about having the authority to remove trees because it's required to get to a property. So I would want to just take a second look at that to see if there's anything in there. But if it was, if the raise order is issued and that's a necessary component of it, I think you'd be able to do it. I would just want to check the statutes, make sure that there's nothing specifically what you're supposed to do in that situation. But I mean, the value of these trees, I mean, is this brush?
Yeah, there's not much there, and I mean, worst case scenario, the
These aren't
trailer could
mature,
come
beautiful
up
oak trees, I'm
and
guessing.
maybe get over the tops, I don't know. I don't recall how tall they are, but I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
workaround, but yeah, we may need
If it's brush, you know, what's the value of those trees? It's hard to imagine that
Right.
could be significant, that if it just had, you know, that it may just have to be done in order to, you know, complete the raise order. But I would take a second look at that.
Okay.
I would think that you raise a good point. I would assume that, assume it costs X amount of money to raise the buildings, and that's whatever it is. And that will be a cost we will bear because it's being done at our request by our contractor. Those costs will then will be constitute a lien against property. Now, she can She has 3 years, I suppose, to pay that. I mean, is that just like any other?
Be a special charge on the
charge.
taxes,
But,
yes.
and I suspect at a minimum, she probably could refuse to do anything for up to 3 years before we could seize the property.
She's already not paid for 1 year, so yes, it's typically the county doesn't.
It's a 3-year cycle. with
They
the
have a
county.
3-year cycle
So
for doing
They
that.
have 2 years, yeah.
So, essentially what happened is we'd front the costs, and we probably wouldn't get it back for 2 or 3 years. But I think in light of what's happened, I still feel strongly we ought to move forward.
Yeah. So I share your concern or, well, question.
Are we going, I know that we've set aside some funds for this project. Are we going to set a limit on how much we're going to spend, or?
I think until we get some ideas of the cost, it's all kind of open. I mean, we set aside $25,000 to do this. We know that that's not going to cover it.
Right.
The thought process when we started this back was, if we have to do this, it's the old, how do you take a bite out of an elephant? We're going to do a building a year or a building and whatever we can assume until she either throws in the towel and it becomes, the issue of ownership, maybe reverts back to the county and then we pass the baton, I don't know. But
So our action tonight would just to
issue
move forward,
on
get
the
some
raise order,
costs,
and
and then
that's it.
discuss finances later.
Right, yeah, we just need to get the next step in the puzzle, and then we'll have the cost, because I need those costs to go back to the admin and finance department as well. And so then we can say, okay, this makes sense, we go here, or we don't, or we have to wait a year. But we do have, and Randy did the homework on this, once the court says it's okay to do this, we can take a building a year down. There's not it's not like a timetable. So, if we have to deal with it that way, we will.
Have we reached out to our building inspector and given him a heads up on this?
No, not yet, because this is the first
There's been a lot of
conversation.
people nosing around there the last couple of weeks. I don't know if that's because of this or if there's been people, I saw a guy walking in the house last Tuesday, I think it was. He had a camera, and another guy was there taking, with like an old-timey looking camera, taking pictures and stuff, and one guy had a tape measure out, so I don't know if it was something because of this.
They talked at the finance committee meeting that people have been going in the buildings, and so they have a safety concern, but it's her safety concern, not the town or the county.
Yeah, the door's open now.
The doors are open, and I'm sure
It
there's
wasn't
some-
open a month ago.
Oh, well,
I
there's
noticed
multiple doors,
It started open and closed, and
so we'll see what's up.
with the trespassing for the inspector, there is no such thing as trespassing for a building inspector. If there's something that they can go on the property to look at, they can trespass on any property. So there's no question there.
They can't trespass, they can access.
Well, it's in if you read his contract, pretty much he says you can trespass.
Oh, okay.
Also with liability, if he gets hurt, he has his own liability if he's on any
Right,
job
he's
site, so we have to
bonded
worry
with
about that
us.
end of it.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, then Amy, have anything to add before we go forward with this?
No, I think you
Okay.
summarized it well.
All right, in which case then a motion would be in order to pursue, yes, go ahead.
So if we decide that our building inspector is going to proceed with this and he issues the order?
Yeah,
think
he's
that's
the
it.
one who actually
Okay.
signs the order.
And then you would arrange for the service and all that?
Right.
Okay.
We usually prepare the order, or
Oh, you
the
do?
raise order for
Okay.
the building inspector.
All right.
Okay, so what we're looking at then is the approval to move ahead with the building inspector so that he can eventually create, with the help of Amy, a raise order, after which we will come back at a future town meeting and discuss the costs associated and what kind of priority we'll establish on this. So we're just looking at next step at this point, one step in the chain here. All right?
Well, I would make a motion that pursuant to the recommendation of our legal counsel, the town proceed with having the building inspector issue a raise order and whatever subsequent action is needed. And like you said, Mr. Chairman, address financial issues later on.
Okay, we have a motion by Linda, and a second from?
I'll second that.
Second from Jim. And I think the only thing I'd maybe tweak there is just, we do want the building inspector to inspect the buildings, the Muscat property, and issue a raise order, and I would add the words, if appropriate, just so we're not making a decision for him.
Fair enough.
But with that amended change, other than that, we have a motion by Linda, second by Jim. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carried. We'll get a hold of our building inspector and share with him the great news. All right, Amy, feel free if you have other things, that you don't have to spend the rest of the evening with us, but
That's all
you're
right.
welcome to do so.
I will, thank you.
All right. So, next item here we have is the clerk treasurer's contract renewal. And my clerk treasurer has assured me that she has made no changes since she gave me this, that it is unamended, other than just dates and a few minor tweaks. So you've all had a chance to look at it. It's basically the same as we have done in the past. Amy tells me she's going to be with us 4 years in July?
June.
June, 4 years in June. Time flies when you're having fun. So,
I thought you were going to say she promised to be with us forever.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I thought he was going to.
I think it's a pretty simple agreement. We pay her, she stays. But I could be wrong. Is there a correction there? No, huh?
Not at all.
Okay. I think she's done a good job for us. So, if anybody have any questions on this? If not, we would need to have a motion to approve this renewal of her contract.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract between the town and the clerk treasurer.
We have a motion by John to approve the contract renewal for our clerk treasurer, and then we have a second by?
I'll second.
Second by Mark Hain. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, Amy is going to be working for us through 2020. All right, thank you. All right. This next topic is strictly a discussion item. We're not looking to do anything specific with it tonight. We will bring it back because we are without some numbers that I would like to have for that discussion. But the gist of it is that, as you well know, the town hall's paid for. We've gone 10 years. At the initial inception of the town hall, we extended as many opportunities for our townspeople to use this facility with limited or virtually no cost. We've reached a point now where our monthly maintenance and upkeep and things continues to grow. Our use continues to grow, and I think it's time for us to make a few minor changes in the rental of the town hall, as well as the rental of the park. None of this has changed. I know the park, it's been more than 10 years, and of course the town hall, I think we're getting close to maybe 11 since our initial thing. So I've asked Amy to just kick this around and get us some numbers. Amy, do you have any comments with respect to this? I know you started on it, but it's not completed.
So the town hall has been rented out 25 times in 2019, which is down 5 times from 2018. The Girl Scouts have used the facility 11 times in 2019 at no cost. So we have had 12 not-for-profit groups use the facility to host gatherings and parties in 2019 at no cost. Currently, the rate for a resident to book the town hall is $100 with a $100 deposit, and non-resident is $150 with a $100 deposit. The town park has been rented 8 times by private parties in 2019, and that is up 3 from 2018. Then we also have the cubby games that are played there and class tournaments. Currently, the cost for the park rental is $50 for residents, $75 for non-residents. The school has also has access to the park along with hosting the turkey trot free of cost. I did check with the local neighboring municipalities. Jackson Port, who just put up their town hall and their fees. So a resident in Jacksonport pays $100 to use their meeting room or their main room in their town hall. A non-resident, $150 with a $200 security deposit. Then if that resident wanted to use the main and the training room, it would be $150. And then for a non-resident, $300. So they have option of, Linda, you've been in there. So
Yes.
they have a training room on the side that they can open up and then a larger room. For the town of Egg Harbor, the charges for a resident and non-resident are the same. It's $75. If they wanted to rent the park and the hall, since they're side by side, the total is $100. Now their security deposit for either or is $175 for the security deposit. So those are the numbers that I have.
When we bring this back next month, would you recap that on paper for us and at the same time incorporate the cleaning maintenance expenses that we've incurred?
Absolutely.
I hate to say it, I think we have the nicest town hall. So of the ones you mentioned, not to undercut them, but I think you get a pretty nice facility here. And I also like to make a comment on the nonprofit piece. It is not our intention to bounce the Girl Scouts or some of the other groups. So we're going to work with them so that they still have availability. Our focus is really on the groups that have used it for entertainment parties and other things to try and balance out a little bit of the costs, kind of a user fee basis. So we will discuss this at length in January. Unless anybody has any comments now, feel free to jump in. All right.
The only question I have is with the park, with the nonprofits doing tournaments and events over there. We should talk about that next month as well. Because I've been, people asking me about running tournaments for nonprofits and stuff.
We will incorporate
discuss
that, so please give some, and whatever information, as Amy's the gatekeeper on this one. Okay? Great, thank you. All right. Oh, boy, oh, boy. All right, we got to back up, because I skipped over after all of that, the adoption of the 2020 town budget, which is a good idea. And it's here, right in front of me. So the town budget, which we have just about mailed out everybody's tax payments, or tax things, so now you get to approve the budget after the fact, but that's okay. We haven't changed the amount, nothing has changed. The initial work session, our town budget expenditures and debt was $1,237,250. We included one sheet out of the budget worksheet, nothing has changed. We had until December 31st, just from a legal perspective, in terms of having to approve it by that time. So we're not really we're out of sync a little, but we're still legitimately okay. So with that, we need a motion to adopt the budget for 2020.
I'll move to adopt the budget for.
Well, they make you the fall guy for everything, don't they?
Sure, when it comes to spending money, a motion to approve and adopt our 2020 budget of revenues and expenditures as presented at our public hearing.
Great. We have a motion by Linda, a second by?
I second that.
Second by Jim, to approve and adopt our 2020 town budget. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have a budget, thank you. All right. That takes us to the resolution number 08-2019 TB, which is the appointment of election officials. And this is the document where the Republicans and Democrats provide us a list of individuals that would work at our upcoming elections. The list on one end is pretty long, and on the other it's pretty short. But if you have any questions about that, if not, we need to act on that resolution, and we can do so by making a motion if you have any questions beforehand or during.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 08-2019 TB.
We have a motion by John and a second by
I'll second that.
Jim, J&J, all right? To approve the resolution number 8, 2019 TB, appointment of election officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Treasurer's report. You should have before you our budget account balances, our budget versus actual from January through November of 2019. And you also have the transaction list by date. Any questions on any of those items? A motion to approve would be in order if you are satisfied with what you see.
I'll make the motion to accept the treasurer's report for December, or excuse me, November 2019.
November 2019, motion by Mark, second by
I'll second. Go ahead.
JJ did.
Second by John. All right, motion by Mark, second by John to approve the financial reports for 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I didn't intend to skip you, Amy, but you must have a couple of tidbits you'd like to share with us.
The tax bills went out last week. I'm sure everybody is aware. We are already receiving some deposits from them. We received our reimbursement from the county for our EMRs, and there was a significant donation made to our EMRs from a resident that we are very grateful for.
And I might make mention of the fact that the town lowered the tax bill for this last year. We did not have an increase, so if you're looking at your tax bill and you see an increase, I would suggest you head a little bit that way and talk to the people at the school, because mine went up $700 and some.
Or the lady in the red shirt.
And that way,
And that way, a little bit of the county, but the lion's share of that came from sources not from this town. So, just so you know. All right. Has everybody had a chance to look at the vouchers, claims, and bills?
Yes.
All right. Any questions on those items? If not, we know the routine. The next thing would be a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims.
Second.
All right, motion by John, second by Mark, to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims for November 26th through December 16, 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, motion carries. All right. Oral committee or commission reports or minutes. We have no minutes. Does anybody have anything in the way of an oral report they'd like to make? Jim?
Well, I know that there's a concern which has been voiced. We understand that Door County Broadband has indicated to residents located around Clark Lake that they're going to discontinue, or they're going to decommission the tower that serves those people sometime in the middle of April. This is a matter of great concern to the town of Jacksonport. They have spoken to us. The chair asked me to speak to the town chair, as well as the fellow who's been appointed, given principal responsibility for identifying a fix. My understanding is the town of Jacksonport has asked us if we would be willing to sit down with them and have further discussions regarding this matter, and I think we are.
Right, we have not established a date, but I think two of us will go and meet with their committee or group to understand exactly what they're asking of us. So.
They'll readily acknowledge that the key is they have a request into the state broadband office for a grant under the state broadband program for approximately half the cost incurred to put up, I think it's 3 towers altogether, one very high tower and 2 ancillary towers. And Linda, have they the deadline for getting that in?
It's December 19th, I believe.
Yes.
The grant applications from the various municipalities, I believe it's December 19th.
Okay. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. As soon as I hear something back on that, we'll set up a time, and then I'll just, Jim and I will report back at the next town board meeting with respect to what they hope to do. I know on the surface, they would like us to pull out of the county tower regulations. So we'll have to see whether or not that's feasible and where we want to go with it. All right, next item on the agenda would be the county board report. I miss Waite.
Just addressing that broadband issue, the county is currently working with several municipalities to provide letters of support and perhaps some financial contribution as well, but only if the grants are approved. So there's about 8 municipalities that if they are successful in getting their grants, they might get a little help from the county in the $5,000 to $2,000 range, depending on population and things like that. Otherwise, if you looked at the Door County Economic Development Corporation website, they have a sort of a new face. It's called Live Door County now, and right now they're trying to attract some workforce to Door County, and they indicate there's about 800 jobs available in Door County. I don't know if they're full-time, part-time, seasonal, or what, but there's a big push to get some extra workers up here. And our airport manager, Keith Casbon, who is a Sevastopol resident, is retiring as director of our airport. So they'll be searching for a new director as of May 1st to take his position. The highway department and the airports departments are like us, way over there, snow plowing and salting budgets for the year already. There's also a flooding seminar on Thursday evening, January 16th. This is at the ADR Center, the Senior Center on 14th Avenue. It starts at 6 p.m. I'm not sure what is going to be covered, but we were urged to get the word out for shoreland property owners that you might want to be interested in attending that. They say that the water is expected to stay high and maybe even go up next year. So I know there was a lot of damage and steps and docks being washed away with the recent storms. There's also, the county may be challenging our ozone rating. I don't know if you recall a few years ago, we have, I think, 2 or 3 ozone measuring devices throughout the county. And it's always surprised me that those ozone ratings are so high. I think because it's drifting up from the southern end of the lake. So we may be challenging on how we're getting that high rating. I don't know what avenues they're going to take, but that's something they're working on. Oh, and the county also instituted, it'll be ratified, I think, at county board tomorrow, flexible work hours. So they promise us that all of the offices will still be covered from 8 a.m. until 4:30 p.m., regular office hours, but employees will have flexible schedules, which means they could work anytime between 7 a.m. and 6:30 p.m., as long as they get in their 40 hours. Or they could do the 4 10s, 4 days a week, 10 hours a day. Or they can do 9/80, which would be 9 days, but you have to get in 80 hours. So, flexible work schedule.
We're going to get half a paved road. And catch you next month, okay.
So
And county board meets tomorrow morning, Tuesday, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We set it, move it back for the winter months to accommodate our supervisor coming down off Washington Island. So
I guess the boat doesn't run early.
Well, thank you, Linda.
that's all I know.
Linda, you're not gonna report on the mill pond at all? You don't wanna talk about that here?
I think we have an update on our agenda for tomorrow. I don't know if they've started it or not. I don't know.
I think it's finally showing some decrease. I have a friend that lives on there, he said the first 2 weeks it showed nothing, and now it's finally
A lot
started
of complaining.
showing.
Because of
The sediment and
the
stuff going
rainfall.
down.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to tell people that Sevastopol TV will be recording that January 16th meeting about the shoreline.
Oh,
We'll
okay,
put it on
good.
our station, and it'll be on YouTube also.
Yep, 6 p.m.
Door County Planning has put out a lot of informational things with respect to beach erosion and actions that you can take to deal with that on an emergency basis. And quite frankly, I've been pleasantly surprised by the freedom they've allowed you to go and try and address that issue versus the normal bureaucracy. So if you need more information, we have some here at the town are called Planning Department. They can share it with you as well. All right, thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
All right. License and permits, you see inside the packet, Door County inspections.
I did reach out to zoning because something caught my eye on here.
Oh, all right.
So, in Valmy, on Grasshopper Lane, which I see as strictly residential, right? Grasshopper and Butterfly,
Right.
it's a residential neighborhood. So when I saw establishment of a trade or contractor's business, I
Oh, this is
looked at the zoning.
back to black.
No.
Yes.
I'm not
Custom
sure
seal
what it is.
coating.
Custom
Not-
seal coating.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I was even more surprised because they were allowing a business. There's already a building there, so it's an existing building. Because most of our properties say that you can't have a storage building unless you have a primary residence. So I guess I was a little surprised to see that those properties, so on the south side of Grasshopper and going up along between like the residential neighborhood, that's all zone mixed commercial.
I knew that from when
Yeah.
we were looking for
I
property
did not know that,
for the town.
so.
And I pestered
Park up there too.
Jeff
Years ago.
over screening for that tank that's there.
And
they're working on that.
Yeah, and he did assure me that vegetative screening is required for this contractor business. So,
Unfortunately, it's taken a long time, but yes.
But that building that sits there, that was probably there
Pre-
before we
yes.
started the county zoning.
right.
Yeah, there was a business in there run by a resident on
Foreigners.
Glidden Drive, sold flooring.
Flooring, I think, yeah.
K-E-N-T-O-N or K-U-I-T-O-N, Keaton Flooring was the building owner who lived on Glidden Drive, and you're right, John, it was there forever.
Right.
But when we looked at those properties for the town hall,
Yeah.
we knew that that was a commercial area, so. Okay. So you have definitely looked at that. That's good to know. All right. But you have Door County inspections, and the building permits are in there. And for correspondence this month, and I think Amy mentioned this, from the Thomas P. Pollock Charitable Trust. He made a donation in the amount of $5,000 to our EMRs, which was an outstanding and unexpected support for their services, and I'm sure that John and the EMRs will figure out a very good way to utilize that. And we thank Thomas Pollock and Christine Gritzmacher for that very, very generous donation.
Yes, thank you very much.
You also have the laboratory report on the water. I'm happy to report that the new well has worked perfectly. We have not had one negative.
That's a good
Good thing. September year-to-date for the room tax, these are the permitted properties in our town. You have a listing of all of those, so if you have someone in your neighborhood that you're wondering about, you can reference that. Public hearing for the town for Dan Schott. This is the gentleman that bought the chalet and is converting it into apartments, the Chalet Motel, and he's taking the metal storage buildings and converting them into storage. So that's everything that's in correspondence. So we're down to announcements. I'd like to add one to the list here, which is I want to thank Amy, Linda, for doing such a great job at our town Christmas party, which we held a week ago Friday. Good attendance. We also had Laddie at the keyboards. We want to thank him as well. I assume we will do this again next year, and I would encourage you to participate. We find a good Santa. We had a lot of fun. We had some good food, a few beverages.
Games for the kids.
We had a few games for the kids. Some people were made to look unusually funny.
Some of the adults got involved.
Some adults got involved, and I think eventually we might even get a picture or two posted on the website or maybe a video clip. But thanks to all three of you for your efforts, did a great job. The town office is going to be closed strictly for Amy on the 24th and 25th, and the 31st and the 1st. She will be celebrating her renewed contract on those days. So please do not come and pester her. Our next meeting will be January 20th at 7 p.m. And the only item that I have for the agenda for next month will be, we will bring back the Muscat property. Anyone else have something else that you need on the agenda? If so, please let me know during the course of the month. Hearing none, we come to John's favorite part of the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn from John and a second from?
Second.
Second from Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.